world, and welcome back to another Crisis Victories podcast show today. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley, and I will be your host. And I have a co-host. His name is Pete Turner. Pete, you in the background there somewhere? Pop in, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, there's Pete right up there. Pete also has a show called The Break It Down Show, and I strongly recommend you guys get a chance to see his interviews. Today, my guest is Peter Chen. Peter was a member of, if I've got this correct, you were actually the leader of the Chinese Ghost Shadows gang. Is that correct?
Yeah, at one time.
Yeah, and you came originally from China to the United States?
Hong Kong, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think what I'm going to do is kind of let you walk us through that, Peter, and take us into how you got into the world that you and I have both got some background, similar histories in. So go ahead, please. When did you leave China? How old were you?
Well, back then it wasn't China. It was Hong Kong. Hong Kong was run by a British.
Right.
It was a British colony. Yeah, back then. So I left there when I was 8 years old. Yeah, and while I was growing up, and it was a kind of like third poor place there where I came from, the village. Because why I say that? Ever since I was 8, I have not seen one car or a truck went by our neighborhood.
Wow, man! That's...
I mean, the road that they call road that actually is mud road that people walked on and it became solid.
Yeah. How did you end up coming to the United States? And
okay.
And how old were you when you got here?
I was 8 years old, and my grandfather and grandmother was there, and they got us here. I mean, they apply us, and we got to go through the immigrations and everything, and then finally, quite few years, then it's approved, and when I got here, I was 8 years old. Yeah,
wow.
That's when I got here. I landed in Lower East Side, Manhattan, Chinatown. I mean, really Chinatown, the ghetto.
Yeah.
The house that Peter had was a home built house in the outside of Hong Kong. It had no running water. They had no beds. They slept on boards.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very, very, very simple.
Peter, I've got to share this since we're talking about that right now. Everett, you guys have got to hear this. In 1969, I ended up in a mining camp down in central Mexico along the Durango-Zacatecas border. And Pete, I was in a village of about 200 people. There was only one power line that ran through the entire community. We bathed in a public pond.
You can imagine that, huh?
Yes, I can follow it completely. And I was down there a little bit over a year, and that's how I got connected to the drug cartels, and later after military service went back and became an international smuggler and later a distributor. But that's kind of getting ahead of us here. I'm fascinated by your story from the bio that I went through today. You and I have had very similar journeys, my brother. And one thing I'd like to explain is a lot of people have a question about what the Tong Society really is. Now, today we recognize it as a Chinese mafia, but the Tong wasn't originally created for that, was it?
Well, original, no. When they started in 1800, the Tong was already established in 1800 in San Francisco. Yes. After know about a big earthquake they got, right?
Yeah, 1906.
Right. So because San Francisco. Basically, those days is the Cantonese people that arrived in the United States first.
Okay.
Not like you got a lot of different provinces in China that they speak their own languages. Like they speak Chinese, but they in other words, they got their own village language, like Bukinese, Wenzhounese. Basically, we don't understand each other when they talk, but when they put in writing, we understand them. If you say, listen, put that in paper, and everything they wrote in that paper, it's the same words that we use, but they have different sound and totally different that you won't be able to understand them.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, we got about 168 dialect.
Yeah, dialects over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I mean,
didn't know it was that many, but I knew you had a lot of them in that country.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. Even though a lot of guys that I met, they from Asia, right? They're from China. When they come to prison, I don't understand them, and they don't understand
Yeah.
me. But when they put them in writing, then everybody will know. Because they one time they used one language. Who was that king that built that what's it called, that big wall, the wall, the it's still there today, the
Oh,
Great Wall.
The Great Wall of China.
Yeah, that's the king that who unified in one language, like in writing. So
So I got a question for you, Peter. When you first came into Manhattan, you were connected. Is that when you first met your real father?
yes,
And
yes,
was he connected? I understand you were part of an organization called the Chinese Ghost Shadows Gang.
yeah. He belonged to the Tong, if you want to ask.
He was
He belonged
in
to
the
one of those Tong, yeah.
to the Tong societies. Okay.
Yes.
How did
Well, this little part of the story I'm going to tell you because nobody asked me this before. This is actually, even with Eric, there's a new information for him right now.
Okay. Great.
My father was holding a position as a treasury in Onlong Tong. It's the two major Tong. There's two major, but there's a lot of Tongs. Like every last name, like you end up with like Chin. You have Chin's Association. If the last name is Wong, they have Wong Association. But they have a lot of Tongs. But this is the only two major Tongs that have say-sos in Chinatown. When they stepped in, all the rest of them got to step aside. In other words, those are the two major Tongs. The
Well, your
Onlong Tong
father and
and
your father was a member of one of the larger Tongs.
yes, he was belonging to Onlong Tong. When I fought all the way down there to Marsh Street, that's where he belonged to that Tong, Onlong Tong. The first thing I did, I told him he cannot be here no more. I took him out. I told two of my guys, take him out, but don't beat him up. Tell him he has to go. He cannot be here no more. Because he wants faces so bad, right? That actually I hold grudges with him, even though today he's buried 10 feet down. I still will not, like, when I go to the cemetery, I clean up all my grandfather grave, the what you call headstone, my mother,
Yes.
I won't clean his. Just 3 weeks ago. Because how could a father be like that? What I am today, mostly I could blame him, right? I mean, if I tell this to somebody, like I keep saying this over and over again, if I have 4 sisters, and me it's 5. Every one of us left the house, right? Not willingly, unwillingly left the house.
Wow.
Because of a different time, different year, different day. Now, if I was the only one, then I might be the bad sheep. You could say all you want, Pete. It might not be that way. You see it that way, but it's not. But look, even Eric interviewed my sisters, one of my sisters. If I brought up to all my sisters, all my sister would say the same thing I said.
Wow.
They could have had a better life. It's not about that. More or less, is I took the suffering. It's a fine. I don't mind every time. The first day I landed here, I never seen a spring bread before. By the way, what's your name again? I forgot. I'm sorry.
Dr. Bradley.
Oh, Dr. Brad. See, Dr.
Yeah.
Brad, is that ever since I was 8 years old, I never see a springboard. So I would tell my sister when first time I landed here in the afternoon, I said, look, that's a bet. I was asking my sister, yeah. But look, it's funny. It's not like what we had, right? I said, wow. I touched it and it bounced. So, 8 years old, I didn't know nothing. So, my feet wasn't dirty. I wasn't jumping up there with my sneaker, So I went up there and jumped, bungee jumping, right? So my father, he was in Brazil. I'm pretty sure he met us here. He knew that we was coming. So when he left our family in Hong Kong, is that while I was growing up, I never seen him anyway. So he must.
So you were with your grandparents? Is that my understanding?
No, my
Who
mom.
raised? Oh,
Yeah.
your mother. Okay.
Yeah.
When Peter moved to New York, he moved in with his grandparents in New York. They all lived
Yeah.
in an apartment
Okay.
there.
And my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Peter, how old were you when you started getting into a criminal lifestyle? What brought you into that world?
Well, I was going to tell you, I had no choice. 13 years old.
Yes.
So he was whipping me like he had, like, if he had a reason, I understand. But if I cut school, I don't go to school, or my grades bad, or anything. No, none of that. He go out, drinks, he get drunk, he come back home, he sees me. All he had to do is see me. And he would start taking off his belt and whip me. Time after time, time after time. There's not one time that he whipped me. He told me the reason why he whipped me.
I'm
Okay,
sorry
fine.
to hear that.
I had never let him satisfy that I was crying. I had tear in my eye. Even though it's so much pain, I was only 8 years old. So, all right, forget. So now, the last thing that he did, that I went off the roof. The day that we came back from helping my mother in the factory, back in the old days, like,
Yes.
especially the Chinese people, like, what is the Chinese people now? Not before is what the Mexican now. They took the low-paying job, like washing dishes, right? Working the hard labor. That's what the Chinese was back then. But the new generation that they grew up here, they was born here, is totally different now. So my mother took a job in the factory. The whole family helped my mother, and everything like that. Because she was the last department that, before shipping out. So there's a lot of work to do. One person cannot handle it. Not like she just do the sewing. No, she does the hang up, the plastic bag. The last department. So sometimes
sounds like a sweat factory.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Factory, yeah.
And I like how you did a comparison about the Mexican people today being used, the immigrants, right? How they are being used for labor. And I'm sorry, what?
Do you see it that way? I see it that way.
Yeah, I do see it that way. I agree with you completely. I'm 70 years old, so I kind of remember some of the history from way back where the Chinese societies would have people that were working and multiple families living in the same dwellings in San Francisco. I'm familiar with that to an extent. It's interesting to note that you brought into the show today the transitioning, and where now it's still going on, but another race, another country.
Yeah. Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So now, 40 years ago, you would never heard of a Chinese sitting judge in the federal court, but today there is.
Yeah.
Today there's
pretty crazy.
Judge Chin, my last name. But I'm saying, 40 years ago, you would never have a federal judge. Forget about so they don't hold that kind of position. But now, times changed. So now what happened is the Mexican took over the hard labor job that we used.
Yeah, the labor jobs.
So that night we came home, and then I came home with my sister and mother, and then after school I go help my mother, and I don't know nobody. I only have 2 friends. That's it. So I basically don't have no times. So when I get out of school, I go help my mother. After helping my mother, don't know what time we're gonna wind up being home. That night we wind up being home like 10 o'clock at night.
Jeez.
So those days she works like 18 hours, 16 hours, minimum 10 hours at least. There's no less than 10 hours. Sometimes 7 days a week, 6 days a week is minimum. So so now that night that we came home, and then my mother went to the bathroom, take a shower. We take turn because we haven't eaten yet. So 2 of my sisters started making food in the kitchen, right? And then now I was sitting in the bottom bunk. I got double bed, and then I'm taking on my shoelace sneaker. And then he come, he whipped me. He said, "Where the hell you guys go?" Blah, 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 blah. Hit me. All right. So I know him. So at that, he don't see any emotion in me, because I don't want to. I don't want him to have the satisfaction that, that he see tear in my eye. No, if he beat me up, he whipped me with a reason. Yeah, I probably let him see that there's tear in my eye, but there's no reason that he does that. He continuously doing that. So now, I have never seen into this before. He went to so he see me, got no reaction. He went straight to the kitchen while my sister was preparing the food and took the pan out of her hand and whacked her in the head. I said, look at, I fire out my, that was it. I went off the roof. And that's the day I cursed him out with all day, no kind of, I have never talked back to him. Imagine I curse him out.
Yes.
So
yes.
I know there's no turning back. So now he heard me cursing him back. He got even angrier. So he grabbed the kitchen knife and coming after me. Back in Chinatown, there's a lot of apartments like train, like subway.
Yes.
Long from one end to the other end, right? So I was by the door, and then I knew when I said that to him, I know that. So he's chasing after me, and then the last thing I heard him say with a knife, and then he said, "See how the fuck you gonna survive out there, right?" And I just held up my two hands. And I didn't know. I'm just saying, I just let him know I'm gonna survive with this two hands. That's it. So
Wow.
I don't know what I was going. So when I ran down the stair, we're living on the second floor. Ran down the stair, the step, and opened the front the door to the street. That's when it dawned on me. Where should I go? Should I turn left? Or should I turn right?
Wow.
So I had nobody that I know on my right. The left is my school. So I says, I better turn left. That's the only little section that I know is my school. Because like I said, I used to go to school and go help my mother. And son, knowing that even though next day that we have to go to school, that we wind up being there like 2:00 in the morning, sleep in the pile of garment.
How
right?
old were you at this time?
How old?
Yeah, how
12.
old were you? You were 12 when you left?
13. Yeah, 12 going on 13.
Yeah.
He was when his father kicked him out. Peter, basically was on his own at 13, and he had $5 in his pocket, and
Wow.
and that's
What a
when
journey.
that's when that part of his life really began.
I
Well,
showed you where
I
I brushed my teeth, right, Eric?
Yeah. So he bought a toothbrush, and he was brushing his teeth by the fire hydrant, and then the Italian bread was a quarter. So he
Yeah.
lived on one loaf of Italian bread. He slept on park benches. He slept in apartment buildings in the stairways. They got kicked out of the park benches by the bums. And the rats were too
Wow.
much for him to sleep. But at 13, he's
Yeah.
on the streets of New York. But what's really interesting is he knew like with this 5 block area, and that's pretty much where he stayed. So he just kept around there, just living on that, he knew he couldn't get back, and so that part of his life where the Ghost Shadows came in really began at 13.
Very interesting. Mine started at 15 with no mom and dad or nobody in a foreign country. I get you, brother. It can be real hard to survive day to day, to make those things work and connect.
Oh.
And that's also what got me involved in the Mexican mafia side of my life, was the desire to have and become greater than what I was offered and afforded as a young person in my life at that time. So
Right.
we do what we have to do to survive, don't we, Pete?
That's it. Yeah, that's the whole major thing in my head, was thinking about how to survive, because of when my money was running low, $5, and then I said, shit, I don't have a place to sleep. Fine, I said, I told Eric I slept in the project, by the not inside the apartment, on the staircase, on the stair. Yeah, so I slept on if they got a 20th floor, I would sleep on the 17th floor. The hardly people will walk 17th floor up, right?
A 13-year-old kid looking for a place to sleep.
Yeah. So now I'm worried about now. So I try to get a job from here. I think I went to 5 jobs, look 5 places to look for a job. The last thing I knew didn't work no more is that I walk in the newspaper printing shop, and I asked the Chinese newspaper printers. I said, let me deliver a paper for you. See, I started off from there. They literally dragged me out like a mouse, like my collar, and threw me out. I only weigh 90 pounds. Yes, son, you only weigh 90 pounds. That shit is heavier than you. Look at that. Those papers pretty heavy though, So, but so that's how I end up. And then I says, well, I can't look for a job no more. Every time I go, and then they ask me for high school diploma. High school diploma. I don't even have a high school diploma. I never went to high school. So the reason I could speak to you now like this, we could communicate because I went to prison. If not, I wouldn't able to talk to you like this. Yeah. So, but anyhow, so from there on, I was thinking about how I'm gonna survive. Like you said, how I survive. I have to eat. Well, I was surviving on a lower bread every day, make it last, right? So the money almost ran out now, about a month later. So then the Black Eagle, they was the most dominant crew in New York City back then. It's the Black and White Eagle. They like brother sister gangs, right? So they never fought. They never fought each other. So the Black and White Eagle was dominant, very dominant. Because they was backed by Tong. That's one of the major Tong, and financially that is much influential Tong than the Hip Sing. So, but Hip Sing, you got Uncle Benny there. Uncle Benny is a very respectable guy. That's why a lot of people were let's say a lot of people won't touch Uncle Benny because of all those gambling houses that he runs or knows that he has something to do with it, they would not touch them. But the only like I robbed all the gambling houses when I started. So because we had no major town, we were freelance. We became freelance. We could do whatever we want.
And the Tongs allowed you to do that, huh?
No, they don't allow us to do that. But
I wouldn't think so. They would control that environment.
Yeah, later on,
the Tongs put a $30,000 a head bounty on any ghost shadows, and this is the day when a house was $30,000.
Yep.
Wow.
So they were hunted.
Yeah, and guy Timothy Lee, he died in Boston because of that contract, 30,000. Yeah. But anyway, let's go. So now we was freelance, and we had no Tong that back us, so we didn't care. We had nobody that behind us, like a backbone. They do. So and that's how the Ghost Shadow really started. And then when I decided, I got to do something because I got to survive, right? So at the same time, one of my classmates that we was at junior high school, and that day I wasn't there with him, and then I wasn't in school because I can't go home, and then I can't go home no more, let alone how to stay alive. Though how could I go to school? I can't go to school.
Yeah.
So I was trying to look for a job. So at the same time, the Black Eagle came and looked for me. That's what my friend says. And then it beat him up really bad, right? And busted lip, black guy, and everything, really bad. So after school, I didn't know that happened. I went and meet up with him, went to his house, and I looked at him. One look at him, I said, "Shit, what happened to you?" He said, the Black Eagle came down and asked where you at, and I told him I don't know, which he don't know, so he don't know where I went that day. So, and then they beat you up like this, just for that reason. So I felt bad, right? So I asked him. Now I the way I looked at it, okay, there's a little bit to do with me because they asked you where I am, and you told them you don't know, which you don't know. Okay, fine, but it's still, I think I kind of like little responsibility because of me. But I never did nothing with the Black Eagle or White Eagle. Never did that. They used to come out. They used to come to school, ask me to join them. I said no. I said I can't because I got to help my mother. Right? After school, I got to run to my mother's factory and help her. I wasn't have those minded, being with them, whatever they're doing. So the only interest in me was just like giving my mother a hand. That way she doesn't work that hard, in those days when I was at home. So now they beat him. I asked him, do he want revenge? He said, yeah. I said, okay. let me see something. I said, I think I met, I never met this guy. I knew him because of, I don't really know him. Let's put it this way. I saw my sister talking with one of the guy on the street, and she seemed to know him. So I asked later on. I asked my sister. I says, "Who's that guy you was talking to? He looked like he looked like somebody like different, right?" So
Got it.
right, okay. So and he got a nice shirt on, and open with a chain. Like, you know how it is, right? They just a little different. So now his style is different. Okay, says oh, he's a gangster. I was scratching my head. Okay, forget it. I'm a gangster. Yeah. I didn't know what a gangster was. So, until I watched TV, movie, and I understand, oh, okay, those are gangster. Al Capone, right? Al Capone, those are gangster.
That's
right?
good.
So, back then they had those movies on. Yeah. So, okay, those are gangster. All right. So I told my friend, I think I know somebody. So, because she told me, what's her name? What's his name? His Spirit, right? So I said, okay. So being that time, those days, Ghost Shadow just became like you hear now and then.
Yeah.
They was all the way outskirts of Chinatown. It's not even Chinatown where the area there. There with the Puerto Rican, Spanish, Lower East Side. There was few guys. When I joined and became with them, we were like about 12 guys. They had 150 guys, the Black Eagle.
Wow.
Right? We only have 12 guys. If you read one of those newspapers, they were talking about, one of the journalists was saying, we was going 10-1. One of us go against the 10 back then. Yeah. Because being that, so when I asked Spirit, I said, Spirit, I had this problem. My friend got beat up. I want him the whole story. So I said, could you lend me 2 guns? Okay. So he knew who I was. My sister. He knew my sister. So I'm her brother, right? So he knew. So there's no I don't know where I came from. So okay. So he took this opportunity. I didn't know back then they was having war. Big war with the Black and White Eagle, and also with the Flying Dragon, because they try to muscle in some territory, and also
it's always about territory.
yeah, territory, because of that's where they make money. So, but anyway, so now I asked Sir, I said, okay. So he took me to one of his guys' apartment. He bought a bag of gun. He asked me, have you ever shot a gun before? What? I said, I have never seen a real gun before. So maybe let alone shooting a gun, right? So I said, just give it. So I guess he got a bigger caliber, but since he asked me that question, he gave me a 22. Right? He gave me a 22 long, right? and gave one to my friend that is a 38 Dillinger. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes,
I do.
That shot 2 bullets, right? That you gotta crack it and open up.
Yeah, it's Derringer. Yeah.
Dillinger. Yeah. So I gave I took the 5 bullet. So I gave him the 2. So I said, okay, I know where they hang out a lot. So I said, okay, let's go. We're gonna go back to go to that neighborhood. And as soon as you hear me shoot him, the first shot, just empty your 2 bullets, right? He said, okay. And so now, when we was going on our way there, I said, you sure you want to do this? Right? Yeah. I said, okay. All right. So we went, and before I spotted them, they actually spotted us coming down already, like within 5 to 8 cars, right? And they start to pull 2, like, the sounds are different, I know. So it has to be bigger than 22. They were shooting, I think they were shooting like 38, 238 of those. And then I pull out mine, then I empty it. Then now, before we did that, I told him, just in case we get, split up, and we're going to meet up this place, because I promised Spirit that I'm going to bring back the gun back to him. So no matter what, you got to bring me back the gun. All right. So I said, okay. So now they emptied the other side, emptied the bullet. I emptied mine, and then that's it. I left. I ran back to by the school. So when I met up with him, I said, okay, we got to turn back the gun in. And when he gave me the gun, my heart sank. I opened up and I looked at it. 2 bullets were still inside. There's not one fire. So I didn't really get mad at him because of, I was kind of pissed, but I wasn't mad at him. So I told him, I said, you should have told me this. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
it is what it is.
But I don't want to look the other way. You know, there's some people that,
you got to have your back covered by your brothers.
So, right. So I said, listen, just imagine if we went down there, don't know what, and one of us got killed, then how I mean, I couldn't live with that the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Now if I didn't, listen, you could avoid all this. Now it's not me. I know what I have to do now. So I took the gun. I said, you just created a bigger problem for yourself. Yeah. If you think you're going back to school the next day, you have a big problem. I advise you not to. Yeah. But from here on out, I do not want anything to do with you. And I have never seen this guy again. I have never looked for him again. And I told him not to look for me.
Smart choice on your part.
Yeah, because of
when it's life and death, when it comes to life and death, you got to know that man beside you is going to pull that trigger. I get it. Yeah. I lived in that world. I understand completely. And you don't want those kind of people around if they can't.
Yeah. Yeah, you understand. So,
or you're dead.
Yeah. So I mean, in my point of view, I could look at it the other way. I'm not a dumb kid, but I'm just saying, no, I will step in this for you. So, well, he beat you up, not me. I could say, who cares? I could turn the other way, and that's it. But no, and then I said, you should have told me this before we came. I mean, you have all the opportunity to tell me that, but no. See, you created yourself. You put your life in danger now. So I don't know what to say. So that we split that day, and then I have never seen him again. And I knew from there on, that's it. I had. Then I told Spirit, I know. After that, I told him I have no place to sleep and stuff like that. So he let me sleep in his. He was living with his mother. So he took me in there, slept like maybe 4 or 5 days, less than a week, and then later on, he took me to one of those the Ghost Shadows apartment, right?
Yeah.
The safe house. Yeah.
Is that when you first met the Ghost Riders?
The Ghost what?
Ghost Shadows.
Oh, the Ghost Shadows. Is that when you first met them? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 13. At 13, he was pretty much that was the line. At 13, he pretty much was part of them, but he was the youngest one.
And Everett, jump in anytime with him too.
Sure, no problem.
You're the author that wrote his story, and it's a fascinating story. And I know we're not going to have a lot of time to hear all of it, but I do want towards the end of the interview that we talk about Peter's book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Eric, you said he knows everything about me. He could
but I love hearing it from you, brother. That's what the show's all about. Yeah. So like at 13, by then you were already a member of that gang. That's when you came into
it. Actually became a real member at like 15.
About 15.
Yeah, at 13, he was attached to them. He was associated with them. He was living with them. At 15, he officially took the vow and became an official member. Yeah.
I totally understand that. I was a member of a drug cartel. I get it. There comes a point in time when once you step over that line, there ain't no coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now that later on, then I realized that when I was with the Ghost Shadow, then I realized they was having a big war. Yeah, with the Ghost Shadow, with the Black Eagle and White Eagle, and also the Flying Dragon. Yes. So how the name came about was Dirt Poor. This group was like hardly hear of it. All you hear back then was 3 major gang families, like the Black Eagle, White Eagle, and the Flying Dragon. Now and then you hear about the Ghost Shadow because there's only a few guys. So now they back then we were trying to make a name for ourselves. So now you know how it is when you're that poor and you go against those they too relaxed, too easy, too wealthy. They don't nothing to worry about. We gotta worry about if we lost a gun, we get busted, and then we got to bail a brother out,
Right.
and then
right.
we're gonna do another job. Now that job successful is okay, but it's not successful. Now we got to create another big problem, and we had those time before, yeah. So basically, one time, like at the two incident that I had shootout with a detective, everybody went in. It's only like 12 of us. So
Yeah.
we was hungry. We was together. We was we stick together, and then do the bad time, and we like to one direction that we were thinking about. So the plan is to do this, and once back then, when Nikki took over, then there's two bosses before Nikki Louie, right? But when Nikki took over, then back then we still wasn't had people doesn't really recognize it as yet. So actually, the journalist, the reporter, gave us our name. We didn't create our name; they gave us our name.
How interesting.
Yeah, tell them how we got the name. Evan.
Yeah, so it was these. So the interesting thing was, the Ghost Shadows weren't sanctioned; they weren't protected by anybody. Like Peter said, if a flying dragon or one of the eagles were arrested, the Tongs could bail them out. They could
Right.
supply a gun. They were protected. The Ghost Shadows had somebody that went to prison. They had to go rob somebody to get the bail money to get them out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was completely different, but they were so aggressive and they were so hungry because they had to eat and they had to keep going. And a reporter wrote that he'd never seen thieves so quickly. They were going in and out, and they said they were so fast they were like the shadow of a ghost
Wow.
shadow. And then so the Ghost Shadow said, "Hey, that's a great name." So so they capitalized on great that and became, from that point on, they became the Ghost Shadows.
And we use that name, being that we don't have no money, there's not $2 in our pocket. So when we go to the restaurant and eat, we use that name. We write that name on.
Yeah.
So the Ghost Shadow, and then they recognize. So everybody, then they started recognizing that name. Yeah, but it took years, pretty long, quite a few years before we actually took over Mars Street, took over the whole Chinatown. There's never been once in the history of New York gangs ever since they established the Tong, right? When they had the Tong War, there's only one group of people, which is as the Ghost Shadow, control the whole Chinatown, which is us.
Let's talk numbers. How big did the numbers get with you, Pete? How many people did you? Huh?
What kind of
members?
Yeah, how many people became?
We started with like 12 guys, right? And we was going against like 100 at the Black and White Eagle, 150, and the Flying Giant was 45 or 50. We only had 12 guys, and then by the time we get to the heart of Chinatown, where the main street of Chinatown, where everything's happening, where all the money is at, that then we had like 75 guys. Yeah.
So you guys made it up to about 75 members.
Yeah. Well, you and I know number don't mean nothing. If you got 500 guys with me, I could do anything.
Yeah, I was part of the Sinaloa cartel, brother. We had 2,000 members, so I get it. Yeah, and everyone's a killer. So but you made your mark. You wouldn't be in downtown Chinatown if you guys didn't have a set of balls and make that kind of a mark to be allowed to even function in that community. Correct?
Oh yeah, of course, because you know how much money they was bringing in? 10 grand. 10 grand each gambling houses. There
were 11 illegal gambling houses just on Mott Street. So they were bringing in 110,000 a week just in protection, just on Mott Street.
Once our lawyer says, you guys could buy a franchise, a McDonald's franchise every 2 months. Bought the franchise with the money budget on the side.
Yeah.
He says it's only cost 160,000 back then.
Not bad for 12 kids that came up with nothing in their pocket at all, huh?
So now when we just didn't, at that time that the Black and White Eagle was taking control of those Mott Street. Yeah. They're not just going to give it up like that, right? no,
No.
you know, with
You
that
gotta
kind of
take
money, right? Yeah, because yeah, we took yeah, I mean, it was kind of rough. Hmm.
Let me ask you this, Pete. What happened and what put you in prison? When was that time in your life?
Oh, when I was 26, I went in 26. Yeah, I
You were
came out like
26.
45.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Peter went in under Rico, so it was a big. It was the only time, the first time, and only maybe since then that
What
an
years was
Asian
that?
organized crime group was charged with Rico.
Wow, interesting.
I was in there. Yeah,
What time was that?
yeah, I was the first Chinese ever got tried on RICO cases. But
Wow.
after me, yeah, there's more. Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Was that
Rico.
86, Peter? Was that
No, 84.
84?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Folsom Prison in '86.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I ended up doing 3 years. I got out of there in '89 and was out for about five.
Where in?
Folsom Prison, California.
Oh, that's a lot of my co-defendant in Lompoc.
Oh yeah, I know Lompoc. That's federal. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my lifelong friends did some years down there in Lompoc. He ended up pulling 32 years
Oh.
on our bust. But anyway, getting back to your story. So you were 26 when you hit the prison system. How did that go for you?
Oh.
You had probably language
If I'm
barriers.
going to tell you this, maybe a lot of people won't believe. I did 20 years. And
Yeah,
those
that's what I
20
heard.
years, I went through like flying color. It's so fast that when I called back home or to my friend, I said, Pete, how come it take you too long to call me back? I said, I'm busy.
Right.
He said, you fucking busy.
Yeah, I get it,
just
brother.
got 35 years. I said, yeah, I'm fucking busy. I got no time for that.
We talk about it in the. I mean, when Peter he stays busy, so there's a bunch of different prison stories. But he was running the book. He was running the book in prison. And one year when they actually calculated, he was making 190 grand in gambling while in prison.
No, correct that. 160.
160. Yeah, we don't want to exaggerate. We don't want to exaggerate.
Well, you know what, guys? We're getting down to about the last 5 minutes of the interview
Okay.
time that we have allotted today. I want to talk about this book. Pete, your story is amazing. And, I would like to consider having you back on the show
Sure.
again when we have more time. Because as my co-producer, he has something going on in about 15 minutes. So
Okay.
I definitely want to see if I think Everett's going to get the book. I want to look
Yeah,
at
I went and got it.
Yeah, bring that up on the big screen, Pete. Let me see.
You can. Eric, bring it to the
Oh, there it is.
screen.
Yeah.
Put
Yeah.
it to the front.
Man, that
Yeah,
looks.
two
I
seconds,
would love to get a copy of that book. I really would.
Absolutely, we'll set you up.
Sounds good, my friend.
We know the authors. We're connected.
Yeah. Okay, listen, Everett. Briefly before we go off air, let's get a rundown on the book. Take us through the story.
Yeah, so it's basically it's Peter's story, and Peter basically had 3 lives. He had a life, in up until he was 13, from China to the U.S. when his dad, kicked him out. He had a life with the Ghost Shadows. He had a life in prison, and then he had his life after. And
that's what I'm interested in. What is he doing with his life now? Hey, Pete, can you talk about your life? Yeah, what do you do now with your life?
I supply a hotel for those commercial chemical to wash liquid, to wash laundry.
Excellent. You're working an honest job now in your life. You're no longer connected with the.
You don't know how hard I work.
Yeah. Brother, I understand.
What's funny is Peter was he was in his 40s before he had his first job. That was his first job. He was out of prison in his 40s, and that was the very first job he ever had.
And look at him go.
Yeah.
You know what? He could still have the temptation, if you will, to make all that kind of money that all of us used to make when we were in criminal enterprise. But he came out of prison, decided to go the other way with his life. And I got nothing but respect for you on that, Peter. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Proud to know you. And listen, I do want to do another interview with you in the future. So coordinate. Yeah. Everett, it was wonderful having you on the air with him.
Thank you.
We want to get the next time we have more time. I want to definitely talk more about the book. I want to go in depth on the book.
Sure.
It sounds to me, and I do want a copy of it. That story sounds interesting.
Yeah, contact Eric, and then he'll.
We'll hook you up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I am really literate with this thing, the iPhone.
Well, it's all good, brother. And hey, listen, it's an honor to meet you both, gentlemen. God bless you.
Thank you
for your time today on the show.
Appreciate
And
it.
we'll
Thank
get
you.
in touch real soon, guys.
You got
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But, this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victors.